In this video, I'm going to demonstrate 5 settings of the Spitfire audio plugin which I find useful on a daily basis. First one is to do with this control at the top. So each time I click this control to change a particular setting, you'll notice that the options now disappear, and I have to click this control in the center every time I wish to change a different setting. However, if we go into the settings located in the top right hand corner and go under interface, we have this option which is disable auto hide knob parameter pop-up. And if we enable that, now I can click this control and I can change settings without this menu disappearing. The next option which I find incredibly useful is this global option on the microphone mixer. It allows you to set different signal mixes for different techniques. So for example here, if I load the soaring high strings library, for the soaring legato, I might want quite a traditional vintage sound. However, for the faster spiccato technique, I might want a more crisp, more modern style sound. So what we can do here is in the signal mixer, we can disable global. And for the legato, I can enable the vintage signals. And for the spiccato, I could enable the pop signals. And now when I change different techniques, we can see that the signal mixer has changed. This is also a really useful technique for balancing out the different levels between the techniques. So if a short articulation is perhaps a little bit quieter than, say, a long technique, you can set them to have the same signal. So let's use the pop in this case. You can use the signal mixer to set different levels for individual techniques. The next setting that I find incredibly useful in the Spitfire plugin is located in this top right-hand corner preset settings menu. And it is the different velocity curves. So this particular option enables the user to set the plugin to respond to different velocity pressures of your controller. So if you have a controller where you have to hit the keys really, really hard in order to get that top dynamic, you can actually change the plugin to respond to exponential positive. And this means you could play the keys more softly and trigger the louder velocities from the plugin, and vice versa. So for example, if you have a keyboard where it's really easy to trigger those top velocities, we could set this control to be exponential negative, which is where we will more commonly trigger the softer velocities and we'll have to hit the keys really hard in order to get that top value. The next option, which I find really useful, is in the interface settings. Once more, we have this switch middle C octave number. And what this does is it allows you to change all the note values in their range by an octave. And this is really useful if you're someone who uses Logic or Cubase or Studio One, where you have a method for changing techniques such as articulation sets or expression maps or sound variations. What we notice here is if we look at the plugin, next to this key switch trigger, the Spitfire plugin is changing from C-1 to D-1 for this particular patch. And that's because it's using a different MIDI standard to what the DAWs are. So if we look in the articulation set here, Logic goes down to C-2. So this is currently a mismatch. C-2 and -1 are a mismatch. However, if I was to show here in the MIDI editor how this note here is set to articulation 1, this one is set to articulation 2, they are still changing on the plugin when I select the note, even though the note values are a mismatch. So what I sometimes like to do is I will like to disable this switch middle C octave number. And now I've done this, you can see that the key switch range has now dropped to D-2, and now it actually aligns with the articulation set that I've created. And as we can see, it's still changing. So we don't actually have to edit our articulation set. The plugin will conform to the DAW. The final setting which I'm going to show in this video, which I find particularly useful, again involves the signal mixer. And if we go to settings and again under interface, if we scroll down, we have this option which is automatic unload with mixer fader. So what this does is when it's enabled, if I was to drag mix 1 down, we can see that it turns off. It has become disabled, and that particular signal has now become unloaded from memory. And if I turn it on, we can see that the memory is increasing in the plugin. So with this disabled, if I turn mix 1 all the way down, we can see that that particular signal stays active and those samples are still loaded into RAM. So let's say, for example, we have a legato technique selected and we have a very lush soaring line. Well, what happens then if you want to use that legato technique for a fast passage? Well, this microphone mix might not sound crisp or detailed. So what we can do is we can right click and learn the MIDI CCs of each individual fader, and we can automate in a different mic mix in real time with your score in order to better suit a different style of performance. The one thing that I will say about this is because these options are still technically active, even though we're not hearing them, we are triggering those voices. And as such, it will increase CPU load to keep this number of signals active, and it will also increase pressure on the drive. If you have any, and it will also increase the pressure on the drive you're streaming from. If you have any further questions or want to know more about the Spitfire plugin, please get in touch with us at spitfireaudio.com/support.
Thanks for watching Spitfire Clips. Let us know if it was too long, too short, too fast, or too slow in the comments down below. Hit like if we answered your question, and subscribe for more clips, tips, tricks, and exclusive Spitfire content.